Good morning, everybody, or morning time here at least. Welcome to Watches with Dennis. And we have a whole bunch of watch releases to go ahead and talk about. It seems like a number of brands are trying to seize some attention before Watches and Wonders, which is going to be coming up here in the middle of April. So we're about 2 weeks away from a lot of that content. And of course, we'll all be busy talking about those watches then. So I think a lot of brands, especially brands that aren't at Watches and Wonders, are looking to make some plays here to seize a news cycle before they get overwhelmed by what's going to come out. And of course, that is as we would expect. It is as we have seen year on year from so many different brands, even brands that actually are at Watches and Wonders. I'm looking over at you, White Dial, Speedmaster, and Omega. Again, not unusual for them to do that. So we've actually got a few things to talk about. We're going to talk about some Seiko GPS watches. We're going to talk about some Orient Star watches, new collection that has come out of them. Angelus is on the list. We're going to do Chronoswiss. How can I leave off Chronoswiss? And then, of course, the pink dial Tudor. We'll probably wrap with that since that's probably because it's Tudor, the most interesting one to most of you that we will go ahead and cover, though. Reaction to that watch has been fairly mixed. I'll already note the very first comment before we even went live was DP here saying the new pink Tudor Chrono, the Pepto-Bismol. But I don't know if it's going to soothe our stomachs or not. I guess we'll have to find out what the rest of you think. Good morning, Kevin. Welcome to the live stream. So housekeeping stuff. No videos since the last live stream. My voice is much more recovered now, though, so I should sound better this time than I did the last go around. On the wrist today is my G-Shock. I actually have not been wearing this watch very much because it has been too cool to mow, but I'm actually got the battery for the mower on the charger now because we're moving into lawn season. So I'm going to have to start getting out there doing work. And this is the watch I always wear for that. Now, I announced this live stream, and then I went back and I edited the title because now you'll see like there's a reference to Spiro Agnew in the video description. So I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about this. I've thought about, I don't know if I'll do a standalone video on it because it's kind of just a story, but I wanted to go ahead and share it. I teased it a little bit on the Discord channel, which linked in the video description below to the Discord channel, to the 99-cent club if you want to further support the channel, which thank you, Tuna, for being a 99-cent club member, and good morning to you. And I also have a link to all of the articles that are used for today's discussion, but also a link to my Spiro Agnew video. Now, let me show you this, my Spiro Agnew watch. I've shown it before, but haven't talked about it in a while. I don't wear it too much because it is a vintage watch. So let's see if I can get you a decent enough shot. So I have to block my face. That's all right. That's how these autofocus cameras work. Okay, so anyway, Spiro Agnew. For those of you that don't know, and most of you probably wouldn't, because even I, who studied political science and focused on U.S. politics back in college, knew nothing about Spiro Agnew. Was a vice president to Richard Nixon before Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford became president when Richard Nixon resigned in disgrace. Spiro Agnew had resigned in disgrace as well for unrelated to Watergate reasons. So anyway, interesting footnote in history. And I have a whole video, which again is in the video description, about why this watch exists, because a lot of people did not like Spiro Agnew regarding the Vietnam War and some other positions and such that he had. So this novelty watch came out because of Spiro Agnew, and a joke was going around on college campuses, and my video dives into all of that. But anyway, back to the current story. So yeah, just I saw Koji's comment. Thank you, Koji, for being a 99-cent club member. Was Spiro Agnew watch tax-free? When it came out, no. Was mine tax-free? Yes. And the reason is this was a gift. So Tony, who's my Eclectic Gamers podcast co-host, who's been on this channel a few times, he was on the live stream a couple of weeks ago when we were down at the Texas Pinball Festival. He gifted me this watch. Some other people I played pinball with saw one of these at a flea market and knew I was into watches and thought about getting it, but they didn't end up buying it. And then he found a different one at an antique store, and that's what this one is. And anyway, so I did my video about the history of the watch. Now, in the world of YouTube, that video did terrible, terrible, like for a pre-recorded video. Last I looked, it has under 500 views, which 500 views is great for like a live stream, even with the recording. A lot of people don't go back and watch these current event live streams, but for a pre-recorded video, that's very low. I mean, I have others that are lower, but that was it compared to the amount of work the video was. I was definitely not enthused with the viewer count, but I wasn't particularly surprised either, because who honestly cares about these? You don't buy them anymore. No one. I mean, they use a pin lever, like the old Timex watches. Disposable movement. It's of its time. No one knows the joke anymore. It doesn't make any sense. Most people don't even know who Spiro Agnew is anymore. So anyway, a few months ago, I got an email to my Watches with Dennis email account from someone, and he said, "Hey, I saw your Spiro Agnew video. I wanted to let you know that my parents are the ones who invented that watch." And he said that I think he was the one who actually heard the joke on campus in college, when he was in college in like 1969. And so he told the joke to his parents, and then the whole watch got created. And my video goes into all of that. So he showed the watch to his father. Passed away, I think, around 2013 or so, because the obituary actually had a lot of details on the watch. So I had read that before I had done my video. But his mom's still alive. And he showed the video to his mom, and he said his mom was really excited because they've heard the retelling of how the watch came to be in a variety of venues over the years. But she had indicated that I was the first person who ever actually got it almost entirely correct. So usually someone messes up some part of the story and doesn't have all the details and the flow of how it got to be. It was very much a cultural phenomenon of its era. They sold like a lot of these. We're talking like over 10,000. There was huge demand for the Spiro Agnew watch. In fact, something I did not know, but this version that Tony got me, this dial, why is it so discolored? It's paper. So like the oil and stuff has stained the watch. They weren't all paper. They started with enamel dials, but the watch was so popular, their enamel dial suppliers couldn't keep up with demand. They had turned to another supplier who started producing paper ones. There's some that are labeled instead of Dirty Time Company in the corner of the watch over by the 3 o'clock. It says DTC on some models. Those were sold in a certain department store chain because it was so popular. So anyway, she gets looped in on the email chain, and she's sort of explaining this stuff to me. So anyway, yesterday in the mail, I got two things from the family. One was a poster, which I'll probably show once I get it framed. It's too big and it's rolled up right now. But when they first sold the watches, it came with a poster with, like, I think it's Mickey Mouse, but he looks kind of like Richard Nixon, and talking about this, because the joke was Mickey Mouse wears a Spiro Agnew watch. And again, it doesn't make any sense in today's era, but it was what it was all playing off of when it was invented. The other thing is they sent me this. So another version of the Spiro Agnew watch. Now you see this one is bright white compared to the one that Tony got me. And the reason is this one is enamel. This is an enamel dial watch. And they said, yeah, one of the guy who contacted me, one of his brothers got into watchmaking after they started this brand, and it took off. They did novelty watches for like a decade before they sold the business to another watchmaker. So they did all sorts of novelty watches, but the Spiro Agnew was the first and the most popular. And so he said, yeah, they checked, I guess, and they found two new old stock watches, never worn, movements not used, probably would need servicing at this point since the oils have dried up. But so they found two new ones, new old ones. And so he said they gave one to his niece, and they wanted to send one to me as a thank you for being so accurate with the video. And anyway, it was really humbling. It's the nicest gift in the watch world I've ever had. And so it was just a really big surprise, because again, I enjoyed doing the video, but it didn't do well. And I was like, okay, well, it's such an interesting history of the watch, but people want to talk about the new stuff, right? That's what I do on the live streams and all that. So that's what people care about. But apparently, there are people that do care about the older stuff. And it was really neat. And his mom, co-created the watch. It wasn't just his dad. And so she knew so much about it because they developed it together. And the business, I mean, I remember reading, I think, a clip of an interview with his dad, who had said, like, they asked him, how many of these Spiro Agnew watches did you actually end up selling? And he said, I don't know, but it put my kids through college. And so, I mean, the watch, like John Lennon had the watch. Some of the Kennedys had the watches. I mean, it was, I think Elizabeth Taylor bought the watch. I mean, it was a cultural thing. It's weird to say. And when I first saw this, I wondered if it was like a campaign prop or something. I had no idea about what the ultimate history was. So anyway, apologies for the digression from today's topic, but it was very flattering to get the watch. I got a nice handwritten note from the guy's mom when she sent the stuff, because she had to go up in the attic and find the posters, because she's like, I think we still have a few. I think I do in storage somewhere from the old days. So anyway, I just wanted to share it. So okay. We will go ahead and we will jump into the news. Well, I should catch up with the chat first, right? Yes, of course. I must be respectful to those of you actually watching live and taking the time. Koji asks, what? No Spiro, no Agnew fans on YouTube? There might be a few. Maybe I should have tagged it better. Or, the thumbnail. Thumbnail might have needed. I got a little weird with the thumbnail, but I put a lot of words on it. I've tried to be less wordy on thumbnails. I used to basically put the entire video titles in them. There are guides on how to do this, but I keep telling myself, well, it's just a hobby. I probably should try a little bit harder, at least, even if it is a hobby. But anyway, there are probably a variety of reasons. Tuna says that, Koji says, that's so cool that they got in contact. Yes, it was. So we've been exchanging emails for a few months. I mostly hear from the son who first contacted me, but I think I was his brother, who was the watchmaker, was looped in on some of it, and his mom answered a few of the emails because she was in the email chain ultimately as well. Originally, he asked for my address, which is atypical, and then asked me they wanted my address because they thought they might be able to find an enamel dial, so I could just replace the paper dial with an enamel one. And then they ended up they found it. They found a couple of the entire watches ready to go. So it's kind of funny because Tony always laughs because I paid like $200 to get the one he got me serviced. I tried to service it myself, but I could only get it to run intermittently. So I did find an area watchmaker willing to work on the pin escapement style watches. But it cost way more than the watch was worth. But I did it anyway because, hey, it was a gift, and why not? It's only a couple $100. So that was the logic. So Koji asked about oh, no, excuse me. I already said that. I meant to click on Tuna's comment, which was that he went through a novelty watch phase. This is my only novelty watch, is that one. But now there are two. So the question is, do I want to get the enamel one serviced? Because the movement definitely should be cleaned and lubricated with modern lubricants if I were to wear it. For the time being, I'm not planning to. I have ordered a black nylon strap. Another thing I learned, the red, white, and blue straps, they couldn't find any of the original straps. They only found the watches. The red, white, and blue straps were not the original run. Originally, it came just on a simple black nylon strap, and then most of them were sold with the red, white, and blue. So I actually do have a red, white, and blue, like crown and buckle NATO strap that I sometimes wear on the one Tony got me. But I've ordered a black one because it's like a 19 millimeter lug width. So I had to order one. But yeah, I went ahead and ordered a black one to be more original to the very first run of them. And yes, I'm not sure what all they did, Tuna, in terms of Jimmy Carter and others. I think they might have some with like the elephant, like the GOP elephant and such. One of the photos they sent me, I think his mom has a framed on the wall, like all of the watches that they did. It was sort of far back, so I didn't zoom in to see all of the dials, but it was sort of the Dirty Time Company collection of novelty watches that they put out with the red, white, and blue straps on all of them, just as in a neat frame. T-Looks, welcome to the live stream. Pivot on the topic. Why didn't Tudor do a new Ranger? They might be holding that for Watches and Wonders. So that would be my initial thought on that. But we aren't actually going to start with Tudor. We're going to start with Seiko. So let's jump into it, folks. All right. I don't think I've ever talked about the Seiko Astron on this channel before. If I have, it was in one of these, and it was a throwaway discussion item that I have long since purged from my mind. But I thought these looked cool, so I wanted to talk about them a little bit. Plus, it's Seiko, very popular brand for a lot of you. So I figured it was worth some time. So they have come out with 4. You can barely see them all on the screen right now. They've come out with 4 of these Astron GPS Solar dual time chronographs. Now, the one with the gold trimmings is the limited edition because this is Seiko. So they got to do a limited edition, folks. We can't have a non-limited edition. But the other ones are not. And so, again, this is quartz-driven. GPS would probably imply this to you. So they have a lot of functionality. It's got the radio-controlled GPS timekeeping, handles daylight savings time. It's a dual-time chronograph. I wanted to say, like, in terms of layout, I've never shopped these. I've never looked at these myself. If I were to, I've often thought, if I were to get a chronograph from Omega, which isn't high on my list, I've thought I might get one that does this sort of configuration where it's the 1269, not the 369 subdials. I do like 369 subdials. There's a reason why I think most of the chronographs have that sort of configuration. But just for a different look, I think it works pretty well with this. Obviously, for what they need with the dial and everything, this is busier than it would have to be if it was a mere simple chronograph. But it does an awful lot of things going on here. Now, the case itself is 43.3, I believe, millimeters in diameter. Yes, that's what it is. And it's 13.4 millimeters thick. So quite wearable for a chronograph, especially when you consider the various functionality. Now, the limited edition is bigger. It's a 1/10 of a millimeter bigger in diameter, but it's 14.1 millimeters thick. So it's almost a millimeter thicker in diameter. But they've done titanium bezels on all but the limited. That one's got a ceramic bezel, and I already mentioned the gold accents and stuff. Here's a closer view of, well, yeah, there we go. It's popping up. Here's a closer view of the limited edition, which has some interesting texturing and stuff. I don't know if I really like this sort of gilt look with this black. I like gilt with black in a lot of instances, but in this case, I'm not sure. I think it may be a little heavy for my tastes. And then they do have an all black version, which costs a little bit more than everything but the limited. So here's the all black version if you're curious about how that looks. But anyway, you see the 1/20th of a second. Obviously, you've got all this high accuracy stuff because we're using the quartz features. It's got a variety of multifunction, day display, power reserve indication, all that stuff. Now, these are not inexpensive quartz watches. I want to go ahead and jump down the pricing. This is a blog to watch, so the pricing lists are not. They actually put them at the end, which is okay, but they don't have good spec summary. So the non-black ones are $2,500 US. The all-black one is $2,700 US, and the limited edition one, which it's 1,000 pieces, so it's not particularly limited. That's $3,900. So that is very pricey, in my opinion. Even as cool as these are, but they are solar charged. That's why you see the striping on the dial work. That's so that they can let the light in. That's how Seiko likes to configure theirs for their basically version of the Eco Drive. But anyway, I thought overall the layout looked pretty good. I think it's probably polarizing for some of you. Obviously, we've got the 4:30 date window. I like these date windows with the round circles as a way of doing it. It kind of calls attention to it while not looking like your usual kind of rectangular cutout. I think it's a little weird to say chronograph on the bezel, but I mean, they chose to do it. The bezels themselves are very clean. You see, there aren't a lot of markings and such. It's not like got the tachometer or anything going on with all of that. But I thought this isn't for me. Like, I'm not in the market for this, but if I wanted an industrial looking, highly functional chronograph, I like the way these look. And I think the lug to lug, I wonder if they touched, I think they touched on it. I might have read it. I've read more than one article, so I lose track. So let me see if I can. I don't know why it's not actually certain. I guess they didn't list the lug. I don't want the lug width. I wanted the lug to lug. I think it's under 50 millimeters though, is what I wanted to say. It might be a different watch I'm thinking of, but the sizing would be such that I would assume that they wouldn't be too bad. But I might not be remembering correctly. Yeah, I don't see it here. I must be thinking of another watch we're going to talk about. So anyway, that's my thought. But these all also have their super hard coating. So Seiko has a super hard, just like Citizen has Duratec, and Seiko's got super hard. So these are hardened. So they should be relatively scratch resistant. But anyway, let me see what you guys think about the stuff in the chat. All right, some more discussion about some of these novelty watches. I see that. Koji saying, cool that the case back pays homage to Kentaro Hattori. That's right. At least one of them does. I didn't know if they all did or do not. So the Kentaro Hattori for the LE. I think that's the LE only because of some stuff that they did a little bit different on it. You know, this is where I wish I had just gone and gone down to the gallery, because now I've cycled basically through every single photo. But there you go. One step ahead of the rest, quotation, and you know, some of the information I like to do about the limited edition. I like the case back. Not that we look at those very much. Tuna feels that the Astons are too high tech for him to be interested in. Yeah, I understand that. Again, I think you'd have to really be into the high functionality aspects of it. It's kind of like, well, like the G-Shock I'm wearing. I like how sturdy it is, but it's got a lot of like you could imagine, like as a travel watch, this would be great because it's got an alarm, it has a stopwatch and all of that. I can't remember half the settings. I always have to look at the guide when I want to force a manual GPS radio sync. So, and the manual, I mean, I have a PDF, but the manual is pretty deep. So I tend to lean more to less techy style watches, but like if I wanted to this does everything, this would be a great option. The only thing that I would say against the Aston versus something like a G-Shock is the robustness. Like even with the hardened technology, it's gonna, you know, if you were to wear it for everything like mowing and working on cars and all of that, you're probably going to scratch it up. And then, you know, so that's where but again, you know, G-Shock, not counting like all the weird fancy all metal ones and everything. We're talking a couple $100 versus something that is over $1,000 US actually, and, you know, gets close to $4,000 depending if you want the LE or not. So actually I should have said over 2,000 US because starting at 2,500 for this line. Obviously, they have some different ones, but I do like the case configuration. So while there's some aspects to it that I don't like, most of this I like. It's just, where would this fit in my collection? And the answer is it doesn't fit in my collection. Like I wouldn't wear it. It's ultimately as cool as it is. I mean, I'd make myself wear it, let's be fair, but because I try and wear everything. But ultimately, I don't have a scenario where this like all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to wear that to work. No, I wouldn't wear it to work. I'm going to wear it to work on the car. No, I wouldn't. I'd wear the G-Shock. I could wear it on a casual day like today. Sure, I could. But that's when I wear most of my other sports watches. So just one of those things. Now, pocket watch time. Welcome, Patrick, to the live stream. Want to pick up a Aston someday. Just don't know which one. Well, knowing you, probably when they make one in tantalum, right? That's my guess when they have the tantalum one. Not speaking of tantalum, but speaking of tantalizing, let's sort of stay more in the affordable range, or brands we kind of think of in the affordable range. So this is definitely up market for what the baseline brand would be, and that is Orient Star. I've never owned an Orient Star. I've heard great things about Orient Star. And so again, link in the video description to this Fratello article. This is the Orient Star M Collections. I think it was weird when they said collections and not collection, but I think it's because each one of these has a different dial configuration. And some of them I like more than others, but they look very unique. So I'm going to say, like, when I saw these, I was like, I don't think of any other watch when I see these. I think of Orient Star. So they have three going on here. Let me go ahead and hit on the basic specs first. So there's the open heart blue one, and that's the middle priced one in terms of the watches. That's why you see me scrolling down, because the way they organized this article wasn't the best, but I liked the photos, so that's what we did. So it's 1,226 euro. Then there's the sea green dive watch, which is the Diver 1964. You'll very much a lot of vintage vibes on that one. That's the least expensive watch. That's the 1,475 euro watch. And then there's the dress watch, which is the most expensive one. That's the M45 F7 mechanical moon phase watch. And I got to say, one of the best executions of a brown dial. Brown is a dangerous color when it comes to dials, for it not to look dirty or muddy. and I think they did a pretty good job with it. But anyway, that's €2,000. So we're talking about watches that are occupying over $1,000, €1,000, 1,000 Swiss francs in pricing, but kind of are capping out around the 2,000 price point. So let's walk through these really, really quickly. So in terms of the blue one, it is my favorite dial. I'm not normally a blue dial person. I own like all of one blue dial watch. So I'm not one of those people that just buys a bunch of blue dial watches. I really like this approach they did with this degradé style on the blue. I hate open hearts though. So this one really tore at me because I like this blue, the shade of blue. Like this is something that would remind me a bit of like Moser and the Fume, but obviously it's not Fume because the effect's different here. And I think degradé is the proper term for it. But I just can't get behind. I like the dial configuration too. Even like how they put in their second sand here, or is that the second sand? I'm not sure, but put this in with it, and how they ring overlapped the less important open heart part. Like I even like that layout for how they handled the open heart. I can't get behind open hearts, so I wouldn't buy it, but there's so much about it that I really liked. It's a 40 millimeter in diameter watch. You've got all these polished indices, beveling. I think it looks very, very good. Also, purportedly, I've not handled these. I have heard that these bracelets are a lot better than like what you get out of Seiko. So purportedly, it's a nice bracelet as well, but I don't know. All right, there we go. So this power reserve here in the second hand here. Yeah, I mean like the Roman numeral just at the top, and then we got clean indices on the rest of it. So it's not too formal, but it clearly is conveying its dressiness. It's too bad it's an open heart. Then there's the diver, which is my least favorite. Actually, part of that might be because I already have kind of this shade of dial in a Seiko diver. So it's not really appealing to me. The vintage look is fine, but you kind of got this quasi Mercedes hand and all of the rest of it. So it just doesn't, I just don't really care for the look on this one very much. They have a black lacquer version of this watch if you kind of like this but don't like the color of the sea green. I like the sea green. I've already had one that I think was a little bit better executed in terms of colorway. Non-color match date window doesn't help matters either. It's 14.5 millimeters thick, so that's pretty standard for a dive watch, but it's not, so it's not going to win any records. This is the 49 millimeter lug to lug, 49.6. So this is the one I was thinking of back when we were talking about the Aston, 41 millimeter diameter watch itself. But the price point isn't bad if you like all of this in the way of specifications. I did not remember what they said. Oh, there we go. 200 meters of water resistance. I thought so, but I couldn't remember what the dive rating was on the watch. And then there's this. I wouldn't buy it, but I like the colorway. I think it's very interesting. So they've gone with brown, but they kind of have this mother of pearl approach to it, and also sort of this gradient effect as well. Roman numerals with the power reserve here. So you see where the movement's coming into play. I think that works pretty well. The issue I have is, and this is longtime viewers know all about this, and me, they cropped the hour marker at the 6. I don't like that. I do like how they've implemented the date indicator down here with the moon phase. Not a particularly creative placement. We've seen that out of other brands itself. And I'm not sure. Well, let me not say not sure. I am sure. I don't like how lopsided the logoing is on a dress watch like this, where we've got the logo, Orient Star, and automatic all over at the 3, and you just have this vacuum of blank space. I see where the struggle is real. Like they want to show off this texturing of the center of the dial, so they crammed everything over on the right. I'd probably put the logo on the right, Orient Star on the left, or vice versa, and not set automatic at all, and tried to do it like that. But I like the hands. So again, the blue is my favorite, but every dial has something that doesn't work for me. So I wouldn't buy any of these, but I like the light play here in fact, that's part of the reason I have not an Orient Star, but my Orient Chrono is that red, which kind of reminds me of the mad red of Moser. It's the reason I wanted the Orient watch. is because I really liked how they pulled that effect off. I like this effect with the degradé approach even more. It's too bad it's ruined by an open heart. But hey, I hear people buy them. I don't know anyone who's bought them, but I hear people buy them. So, getting caught up with the chat. Koji says, that's quite a lovely dial. I assume you mean this one, but all but the dive watch, I like the dials, at least parts of them. Tuna says, I have a few of the ordinary Orients. The ordinary Orients, some of them have really nice dials as well, as I just kind of vamped about for a little bit. Noting, as you have here, that Orient dials are normally nice for the money. I think so. Most of the stuff out of Seiko dial-wise, I don't like very much. And maybe that's why the Seiko I do have has this turtle shell texture to the dial. It gave it something a little more oomph to it. But that's not fair either of me to say. Seiko has so many SKUs. Honestly, there are plenty in there that have good dials that I like. It's just a lot of what they put out, I don't. So just one of those challenges. Koji says he doesn't usually like open hearts, but this one looks quite nice. I know ultimately I'm not going to appreciate the open heart, so I can't get around it. Also, as I look, if you're on a bigger screen, this is a little unfortunate. I don't think I can zoom it in because of how the picture already is, but it looks like there's a little bit of a scratch on the back balance of the hour hand here, which is a little unfortunate with that much of a macro shot. But again, I've seen my Moser has dust on it. The hour hand occasionally picks up and occasionally drops on and deposits on the watch, which I hadn't noticed originally because it's the static that clings it. So long story short, I've seen high dollar watches that have flaws when you look at them under a lens. Pocket Watch Time says, I just bought a couple Orient pocket watches for an absolute steal of a price. I've got my eyes on an Orient wristwatch, Neo Vintage. I'll pull the trigger when I find one. I did not know that they did pocket watches. Have you? Surely you have, because you are Pocket Watch Time. Seen the information about that new and maybe first ever Citizen pocket watch that's now out. Did Citizen ever do pocket watches? Again, I don't know anything about pocket watches, but someone sent me the link. It said, Citizen's got a pocket watch. I was like, that's interesting. And then I saw the article show up in my newsfeed a little bit later, but I didn't read it. So I don't know anything about it. Koji says, I didn't realize, should have, of course, that Orient made pocket watches. How fantastic. And now Tuna wants to know if they still make pocket watches. And Patrick has closed the loop on all of this, saying not anymore. But they aren't very old if you want to get a relatively new one. So there is that going for them. All right. So that's it for Orient. And we did Seiko. So we've got 3 more brands we're going to talk about. And just so everyone knows, we're going to jump up a lot in pricing for the next 2, and then we're going to end with the Tudor. So that's the plan. So as we trudge along with our journey, let's talk about Angelus. Angelus is a brand I have talked about several times. Angelus is one of those watch brands where the price point, because they're so expensive, at least all the ones I end up liking are so expensive, I never see myself pulling the trigger on them. But I like so much about how they execute on their dials. And they're kind of the brand I tend to think of at this point with Monopushers, them and Mont Blanc. I kind of associate with Monopusher technology. Obviously, there are a lot of brands that do Monopushers. But here you go. The Instrument de Vitesse. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I mispronounce just about everything. So I think you all are used to that. We've got, there are actually a couple of dial designs here. So you're seeing this dark one, black dial, which I do prefer, but they do have a white dial, which I do like how they've done the blue, the light blue here for a lot of the dial markings on that one. So, I like them both is the long story short, but I think if I were to get one, it would be much more along the lines of the black. So again, with Angelus, a lot of vintage vibes. That's kind of what they end up doing. You have this fluted crown at the 3 o'clock. You can, this picture better shows it. So you see the pusher right there into the crown to be able to do the chronograph function. It is loomed. So I think there is a loom shot here. There you go. So very nicely loomed on the hour and minute hands. And then of course, every single one of the Arabic markings. I love Arabic markings. I like them when they're able to fully mark the dial. I also think it's very interesting how close to center they've pulled these markings, these applied markings in. So obviously to accommodate their chrono technology, the markings to read the chronograph to the chapter ring area of the dial is why they've done it this way. But they look very large, but they're so pulled in. It's interesting because a lot of times I feel like with our markers, you could tell that the watchmakers are struggling to get, like, they don't have enough space to work with. And in this case, it feels like they felt like there was plenty of canvas. Just look how tight they end up pulling all of this in order to accommodate everything else they wanted to do with the watch. So it's just a very, very nice execution overall. Very well balanced dial. This is using, I don't know the exact reference number of the movement. It's basically their A5000, but I guess they've done some modification to it, which is, see, as you can see here, it's reasonably well decorated as well. You can see Côte de Genève and a little bit different texturing applied to the balance cock there. Engine turning on the base plate, I can make some of that out as well. And display case back so you can appreciate this Monopusher chronograph movement. Now, these are limited and they are not cheap. So I think we'll get the baseline specs here down at the bottom. It's a 3 hertz movement, 42-hour power reserve. Here are both of the watches side by side. 17,100 Swiss francs. So that's going to be I don't know, 18,000 plus US dollars, 25 in each color variant. So very, very limited. And as is often the case with anything I like out of Angelus, very, very expensive. And that's part of the reason why I don't love what I like so much about how these look. I don't love anything enough about it to ever want to pay that much. I mean, at 17,000 plus dollars, at this point, I'm easily looking at Vacherons instead. But if this configuration, the Monopusher, all of that, you ain't getting no Monopusher Vacheron for 17,000, at least not a modern one. So also, I want to stress one other thing about these. Very, very thin. They're under 10 millimeters thick. So again, we just got done talking about the Seiko Astron GPS, which are quartz powered, that were 13 and 14 millimeter thick chronographs. This is 9.27. That's very thin, especially for a chronograph. 39 millimeters in diameter, so very wearable for most people. Only 30 meters of water resistance. We already talked about the movement, and we already talked about the price, and that both of these colorways are limited to 25 units. So anyway, Angelus, once again, a very clean, nice vintage, retro looking watch at a price point that I would never contemplate it at, but it looks cool. So I want to talk about it. So let us get caught up with the chat after I drink my Dr. Pepper Zero. Pocket Watch Time says, yes, Citizen made pocket watches before. This new one, if rumors are true, is way overpriced. I heard it was very expensive. Okay, so they have made them before. Interesting. All right. Let's see what is going on. Tony is in. Hey, Tony, and thank you for being a moderator for the channel. And we already talked about the Spiro Agnew watch and versus the one you originally gifted me that put me down the rabbit hole of that whole journey with the creator reaching out. So Tony notes that I'm sure the limited to 100 Citizen pocket watch is going to be crazy pricey. And Patrick is saying the rumor is $9,000. Holy cow. You can get a lot of, I mean, I like, aren't there like used Patek pocket watches that you can get under 9? That's a lot. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's a huge amount of nostalgia for that. Tony agrees. Ouch. That is double what I was thinking at worst. Well, watches always have the ability to disappoint us. We must not lose sight of it. Speaking of disappointment, I gotta go to the least favorite brand on the list for all of you, except me, and that's Chronoswiss. We gotta talk about Chronoswiss. I'm gonna make Chronoswiss happen. I don't own any Chronoswisses. I'm not currently shopping for any Chronoswisses. I have before. I look at them on occasion. Every time I do, people tell me there's always something they hate about them. But you know what? We're still going to make it a thing. Chronoswiss is going to be a thing. And I know they're trying really hard because I saw they had a sponsored post over on a blog to watch. So when you go to a blog to watch, which I like a lot of what they write, but you have to be careful because they present things as articles that are actually basically paid adverts. And they're noted because they always say buy sponsored posts. So they clearly denote it. But it doesn't look like marketing spiel. Normally it's written up like a real review. So anyway, we're not using them. We're using Monochrome's piece on Chronoswiss, but there is one that's a sponsored post over on a blog to watch. So Chronoswiss is trying. They're trying to get people to like these. Just like we did with Angelus, we've got 2 dials to talk about. Now, these are regulator watches, which is something Chronoswiss is very well known for. They don't just do regulators, but it does seem to be, at least historically, the format that got the most level of popularity out of Chronoswiss. We got to use popularity with a very loose hand here because Chronoswiss watches take a bath on the secondary market. I mean, you want to talk, I think they probably collapse more than Chopard and even like old-timey non-Honda PF Parmigianis. Those all like buy those secondhand because you don't have to pay retail for those brands. Chronoswiss is very much in that boat. Incidentally, though, if you want to go back, not like these current model lines, you want to go back a little bit like early 2000s or the 90s in particular and get a gold watch, Chronoswiss has got you covered. You can get a full gold-cased watch at a very, very reasonable price if you want to shop Chronoswiss. And they have some nice, attractive ones. So anyway, I want to throw that out there. Once again, I think we've got some very interesting dials, so I don't feel like I'm bad about saying these look nice. I don't know about this open gear work stuff. Actually, again, like I said, with the with my opinion on the Orient we talked about here with the open heart, I do know. I don't like it. But so I don't really like seeing that here. But it's not really interfering with the timekeeping. And at least they, unlike what happened here with the Orient Star and the open heart, where it's just taking up dial space, over here on the Chronoswiss, at least they went ahead and threw the hour markers over here. So it's still actually like having a functional purpose. It's not just a gear sitting out there being all geary for whatever reason. So obviously we've got minutes and seconds further segregated out as is in true regulator format. Got this very interesting texture on the blue. And this is a lighter blue. I don't like this blue as much. I'm going to keep bouncing the Orient Star because I love this degradé blue so much. I don't like this blue as much, but it works for the watch, I think. So these timepieces are called the H2Os, or this one. I think both of them are the H2O. I'm not sure. We'll have to check on that. And okay, H2O and golden gear. Oh, because the other one has a golden gear. Okay. H2O because water, obviously. So, all right. So this is the water baby one, 40 millimeters in diameter watch. This is 12.7 millimeters thick. Actually, we can go down to the bottom and you can see the full specs. They are steel watches, obviously regulator movements. These are powered by the C6000. That's a La Joux-Perret movement. Chronoswiss doesn't make their own movements. They always use someone else's, to my knowledge. Apologies for the cough. 9,800 Swiss francs. So think something along the lines of 10,500 to 11,000 US dollars. Both models are limited, less limited than the Angelus, which were 25 each. These Angelus watches we just talked about were limited to 25 units each. These are 100 units each. And they come on calfskin, and you can get rubber straps for them if you want them. So here's a picture of the movement. Movement decoration is there. I mean, you got striping and such. So again, at the price point, you would hope for it. And I think they do a decent enough job. Like, it looks better than an Omega does. Actually like how they present that movement. But La Joux-Perret, I think, is reasonably well praised for their movements. Again, if you're into regulators, I tend to favor something a little cleaner. So I don't really like the water texture here. The black one with its more linen dial works a lot better for me. And this is a better example of how I like gilt. We talked about the Seiko Astron GPS watches here earlier, and the limited edition one with this gilting was a little loud for me, whereas here with the Chronoswiss, much more subtle. It's interesting because this is less of a true gilt in the way I think of it. This looks like it's gilted in rose gold rather than yellow gold, so that's part of it. Obviously, it softens it up quite a bit, but I think that complements the linen dial very, very well. So, I mean, as a regulator watch, I think this is actually a pretty reasonable configuration, and I would be tempted by this watch, but not at $10,000. So anyway, but I thought they were interesting. And you know me, we have to talk about Chronoswiss. And of course, they're maybe not patented, but definitely well known. These giant, like, Onion crowns are a thing that I think a lot of us associate with Fliegers. IWC does a lot of onion crown, like big crown watches. Obviously, you've got the big crowns that Oris does as well, but nobody does a giant bulbous crown like Chronoswiss. I mean, those things are massive. Not all of their watches have them, but it definitely is a staple of the modern brand that I see on a lot of their watches. So I will say, if you've never worn a giant crown watch, try one. But from a winding and setting standpoint, they're great. I love the larger the better on a crown for working with a watch. In fact, as I've said a few times on this channel, part of the reason I got rid of the Ming Messina Lab watch I had, that tiny little crown would cut into my wrist. So the small crown was actually pretty uncomfortable. I wear a Stova. Excuse me, I inhaled some dust. Which has a big crown, Fleeker style, that I really, really like. And I had an IW Portuguese, which was a big, like 44 millimeter diameter dress watch, tiny crown, pocket watch sized movement. I mean, it was a true pocket watch movement, or at least of that same size. And it was hard to wind once that mainspring started to get tight because the crown was so small. I actually had to take like a microfiber cloth or my shirt or something to grip the crown. That would not have been a problem with a big crown. I'm sure they decided the big crown wouldn't look good as for a dress watch. You might not think it looks good because these are kind of dressy, but I think it works for the way this looks. But IWC is going to IWC, so what can you do? All right. What are we saying? Tuna says, Chronoswiss. This is one of those sleeper brands. They're so unique in their dial. That's kind of why I like to plug them so much, because they really are doing different stuff. The problem is they're doing different stuff and none of it ever really works. There's always something. They're polarizing. How do you convince someone to spend this much money new when you, again, especially if you're unsure if you're going to want to keep the watch or love the watch, and like you're going to take a hit. I mean, we take hits with what, I mean, I've taken a hit on plenty of watches I ended up dumping, but there's a reason why I buy almost all of my watches used in gray. And that's because I want the hit to already be mostly taken by someone else. And then I can just lose trade-in value or whatever I'm going to have to pay in fees to eBay or Chrono or whatever. But, looking at this and I'm like, this watch, I'm not showing you anymore. I realize now this watch, like, I know this is going to be at least $2,000 off. And it's limited to 100. And I still say, I know this. So I don't really know it, but I feel it in my bones. Like, this ain't 10,000. It's 8, maybe more used. But like, I think they're not going to sell all of these, and they'll dump them on gray or whatever they got to do. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Pocket Watch Time says, I like the crown on the Chronoswiss. Excuse me. Yeah, I already talked about that. Tony says, I do think the blue is better on the Orient Star. Yes, it's just the shading. It's more elegant, which again, this is kind of these regulators, very dress watch looking, but I get it because they're going with like wavy water. To me, this looks like crinkled up Reynolds wrap foil, but just blue instead of silver. Koji says, you'd think with a pocket watch movement with that much torque, you'd have a bigger crown just to wind it. You would think that, Koji, but you would think wrong. But I can tell you what, after having owned one of those, I see why they shrunk the Portuguese, relaunched it as the Portugueser line, dropped doing the pocket watch movements. And I also see why IWC purportedly barely sold any of those. But it was a beautiful watch. I still look at the Portuguese line and think, you know what? I really like the dial configuration. It's kind of like what I liked about Angelus. So much of the Portuguese line has these really clean Arabic numerals, and I just really like that look a lot. Tuna says, excellent looking workmanship, though. Yes, very much so. So, okay, we've done it, folks. We're ready for the last watch topic, but I got a cough again, so I'm going to mute the mic. I still feel this piece of dust. I've almost worked it free. This is the price of being live, though. Tudor, the pink Tudor. Let me scroll all the way back up. Someone, DP, left this before we even went live. I don't even know if DP is in the live stream now, but DP said the Pepto-Bismol. So I went all the way back. This comment was left at 9:36 a.m. I went live at 10 a.m. Central. So they left it well before I was ready to go live. So we're going to talk about the new pink chronograph Tudor that got dropped. Tudor normally has a pretty big presence at Watches and Wonders, and I'm sure they still will here in a couple of weeks. So this was a bit of a surprise, maybe more than a bit of a surprise for everyone, but we're going to walk over it. But first, I'm going to show you, I did throw this out as a comment. Not very many people saw it or replied to it. But thoughts on the new Tudor Black Bay Chrono Pink is all I left. And we had a few people. So I left my thought that I thought the colorway works. Reminds me of the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Cotton Candy or whatever. But that the chronograph, the Black Bay chronograph, it's never worked for me. It's never clicked for me. I don't care for the date window and how it looks. I don't care for, and I've talked about that. Lots of people whine about this. I don't care for the snowflake hour hand and how much of the subdials it obfuscates when it's around 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Those are the main things. Plus, I hear these are very thick. These wear big. So we have Joel Bolt said, I like it, and its alleged exclusivity sounds exciting, but I won't be buying one. If I had a significantly larger watch budget, then probably yes. But for now, there are much better purchases that I can make for myself. Watch budget struggle is always real. Neff said, it's definitely for someone, just not for me. I've held and worn the Black Bay Chrono and was not impressed. The movement felt very rough. And Dr. Design said, crap. So thank you, everyone who was able to go and leave a comment. Again, links are in the video description. So I have a link to this monochrome article. So we've got it in the Jubilee style bracelet. So obviously, it's the Black Bay Chronograph. So we're really just talking about that it's a pink dial. I don't know that there's ever anything all that much different otherwise, but this is a partnership watch that's going on involving David Beckham. And so I think anyway, let's jump down and do the specs first. That's probably the best way to do it. Oh, wait, monochrome doesn't have the specs. That's a first. It's because these are just like the few promo photos. I went to Tudor's website, and when I looked, we'll go there now. All I saw was a news article. I didn't actually see like it in the shop or anything. So basically you have this, I guess, well, this link is not in the show notes, but you can get to the link to it from monochrome, but I guess we'll just use Tudor's website for now. So this is the Inter Miami CF. Pink was incorporated into that team aesthetic. So this is what that watch is doing. And it's only going to be a few of them. I don't know how many, but here you can see a picture of like the team uniforms. I don't know if if I click, if I'm going to get the same article. Okay, no, there you go. So there's the uniform. So now you understand it's the same shade pink. So that's what's going on with it. I think the pink works okay on a watch. Like, again, like the cotton candy watch. It's not for me, but like, I don't think it's ugly. Like, I've seen dials that I think are ugly, but I also can definitely see the Pepto-Bismol vibe going on here with this particular shade of pink. I don't know. Pink is an interesting color. It's tricky to do. But for example, one of my neckties that I've had for years that I wear quite a bit is it's a breast cancer awareness tie. So it's got the little pink ribbons on it. People don't always, because the ribbons are small, people don't notice it. They notice the pink on, it's like the tie is blue and then with pink accents. I get more compliments on that tie. It's not my favorite tie. My favorite tie is an Australian tie that's shiny blue and it's got koala bears on it, stylized koala bears. But the breast cancer awareness tie is my second favorite tie, but it's the one I get the most compliments on. And I think it's just because the use of the pink actually helps a lot. And every time I get a compliment, I go, thanks. It's actually a breast cancer awareness tie. So, but this isn't a breast cancer awareness watch. Maybe something a little pinker, a little less Pepto-Bismol-y, I'd say, and less Miami color, and maybe more of the Susan Cohen Foundation pink would work better. A lighter shade of pink, because that's more of a pastel pink. And this is, I don't know what this is. Obviously, this is still arguably a pastel pink as well. I don't know. The photos they've staged here, I thought looked okay color-wise. Non-color match date window, I don't like it. Obviously, I understand why they placed it at the 6 o'clock. This is still a very text-heavy watch dial. It with the black, it's okay. It's okay. I'd never own it, but to me, it's okay. I like the case config decently. I've never been a huge fan of like the screw down style pushers. I assume these screw down. They look like screw downs. So, I mean, whatever. But I like the pusher format that they've gone with. But anyway, it doesn't. There's a reason I didn't do a pre-recorded video on this one. I just didn't think it was interesting enough. It's just a new colorway after all. And it's going to be super limited. It's not a colorway I love. So it's like, but with the Jubilee style bracelet and stuff, I think it works. Like, I imagine in the metal or in the flesh is how I would usually like to say it. I see the pricing. They have the pricing here on Monochrome. It's $5,675, which is the same pricing as the standard models. But given it's going to be limited, it's probably going to be a little challenging to get, I guess. I'm just not feeling it with the Tudor chronograph. There are parts about it I like, and there are parts about it I don't like. And overall, that means I've never spent near on $6,000 for one of these. But that's my thought. So, all right. What do you guys think? Let's jump to it. Kigif, or should I say KIGF? Don't know how to say your handle, but welcome to live stream. I just don't like the Tudor hour hand. A lot. You are not alone. A lot of people hate the snowflake hand. I am okay with a snowflake hand. I am not okay with a snowflake hand on a chronograph. So I think the snowflake hand looks great on well, all right, not great. I've never gone, gosh, I love that snowflake hand. I want to buy it. Like some handsets can do that. Doesn't do that for me, but I owned a Black Bay bronze for years. And I was perfectly happy with that. Like I did not let that watch go because of the snowflake hand. I let the watch go because I wanted other watches. So one of those things. Tuna agrees with you. Not a great fan of it either. Patrick with Pocket Watch Time says, I hate it. You got to be like, it's shake and bake, but I hate it. For those that don't know, there used to be a commercial for Shake and Bake, which is a food thing. And there was a little girl, but she had a Southern accent, a U.S. Southern accent. And she would say, it's Shake and Bake, and I helped. But I think it was my sister, always misheard it. And she thought she was saying, it's Shake and Bake, and I hate it. Even though she enjoyed doing the shaking. So you put like the chicken and you shake it. Anyway, and guys don't care about shake and bake, but you got to shake it before you bake it. Anyway, he continues, but I'm sure it will be popular if released to the public. Watch Gringa thinks it's being released only to the team and sponsors. I sure hope it's a little broader than that. Why else do a news release? Would be my thinking. Like, why even put a news release out if it's just going to be like a run for just people that are, like you did like, what's his name? Who's the guy, not John Mayer, but the other guy, that did that like 2-hour-long video, musician guy. Anyway, he had a custom watch or something, I think, made for his tour that he gave to all the people who helped on the tour. Like, there's no reason to do a press release on that because no one can buy it until they get sold secondhand. I don't know. That's just my thinking. But hey, maybe it is. I mean, they did say limited numbers, so I don't know any better than anyone else. Anson, welcome to live stream. The bracelet pairs nicely on the Tudor. I guess if you like the bracelet and T-Fit combo, I'm sure they will be coming out standard on the Chrono if Tudor gets enough good feedback on this release. I've heard very good things about Tudor's T-Fit. I have not owned one of them myself. My watches that I've had with Tudors, I did have a 1926 on bracelet, but that model line well predates the T-Fit. In fact, I got rid of that watch, but I think before the T-Fit even came out. So it's not one that I've handled. All the Tudors I've gone and tried on since the T-Fit have never been on bracelet. So I've heard great things though about that. And when I would hope though, I mean, being part of Hans Wilsdorf, Rolex owning it, and Rolex's bracelet game is impeccable. I still have not found a brand that has matched their bracelet game. But there probably is one out there. I just don't know. It's probably on the Nautilus, and I just don't know any better because I am the poor, at least when it comes to Nautilus. Koji says, needs to be a lot more neon in color or lighter shade, like the GS SBGA 413G. I think it's the cherry blossom. I know which one you mean, and I think you are right that it's that one. Well, actually, I will attempt to pull that up. I say I think you're right on that because I think I had that on my watch list for my watch list for a while. Or at least the original spring collection one. So here we go. Now I hear these Grand Seiko ones play a lot more in the light, like in bright light, that they can look more silver than pink. But you see how light it is. And that's kind of where I was getting at with like the breast cancer awareness shade of pink, which is darker than this, but this is this is an example of it. This is the only style of pink that I have looked for in a watch, because I think it actually works really, really well, especially offset against like a titanium watch. So watch casing. So anyway, just one of those things, which I can't remember on, but I will say that my experience with Grand Seiko bracelets has not been very good. So just one of those things. All right, back to the Tudor. Oh, we don't need to look at the team anymore. There we go. There, I'll change it to a different shot. There you go. All right. I think that's actually everything that we had to cover, which is great. I'm going to get lunch for my dad's birthday and go and visit. So that's my plan. I hope you all have a good plan for the rest of your weekends. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching the recording, apologies for the times I coughed. I try not to cough during an episode, but if you inhale something, what can you do? So anyway, feel free to leave feedback on any of the points of discussion that I had. Plan to have another live stream next weekend. We will still be just before Watches and Wonders. Maybe we'll do something about, I've done a few predictions. Maybe we'll do a prediction episode. I don't know. That's so lazy. We'll see if there are new releases. And if there's not, maybe we'll do some, if there's enough of you on, we can do some live predictions where you guys throw out some ideas or whatever, and we try and guess what's going to happen, because it's going to be around tax season is when they did Watches and Wonders way later this year. It's like the week of April 15th. So anyway, obviously we'll have all sorts of fun things to talk about at that point. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Talk to y'all on the next one. Have a good weekend. Take care.